let me be the latest to, sorry, I actually have to bring it down quite a ways. This. All right, can you guys hear me in the back? Yes, yes, excellent. All right, so let me be the latest to congratulate you and welcome you to your new positions. You know, I'm a firm believer that there's something special about the first class. Right, about the first class. Right, we will be in this together. We will be working quite closely to make sure that you have all the information that you need to be able to perform your duties well. And if I like the first class, this will be my first time through the settlement process. This will be Auditor's Crouch first time through the settlement process, and next year will be your first time through the settlement process. So that is 3 firsts that we get to merge all into one. I have got a very short presentation. I want to talk a little bit about the past. I want to talk a little bit about the present, and then where we see the settlement department going in the hopefully not too distant future. With the time that I have left, I told Debbie that if I don't quite make it the full 75 minutes that we have allotted, that I'd let her come back up and continue with the presentation. As we go through this, if you have any questions, just like I saw earlier, if you'll raise your hand, I will either do my best to answer it or I will take notes and then be able to email you an answer once I get back to the office. As you can see behind me, there is no presentations. I have no handouts for you, so I just wanted to sort of talk informally about the past, the present, and the future. But I can promise you that in January we will start the emails to let you know what's coming up, what our expectations are, what our travel plans are, what documents are due, what information we'll be expecting from you, and sort of the layout a timeline for the year. But if we do that over email, we have a nice clean record in which to take a look at it. Okay, so as you can imagine, it has been a very quiet year for the settlements department for the state's settlement department. By the end of the year, we will have lost 50 years of experience in the settlement department. 27 of those belong to Dan. Many of you were familiar, used to work with Brenda and Janie in those roles. We are replacing it with a 30-year-old and a couple of 20-year-olds in the back. But it is an exciting time to be involved with the settlement process. We are inheriting, quite luckily, a process that works, that has worked well and has worked well for a very long time. Our challenge will be first, not messing it up, right? To spend the next few weeks and months making sure that we fully understand the decisions that were made, what affects those decisions made, and all the information that went into those practices. But once we get that down, and give us a week or 52 and we'll have it solved, our next job is going to our next challenge is really to see what else we can get the department to do. How else can we improve upon a process that's already working? Now, that will be the difficult part, and we'll be planning on working very closely with both the LGF and State Board of Accounts and with your local offices to figure out, 1, what we're doing well, 2, what we can do better, and 3, just what else you've always been curious about. I mean, why can't we do X, or why can't we do Y? I left one very important group out, the vendors, the Laos, the Manitron, the Thomson Reuters, working with them so that they are involved in the process. We don't want to tell you what to do. We want to work with you to figure out what's the best practice that we can do to both standardize the information you're receiving from this office and the information that you are submitting to this office. Okay. I can tell you that going through the December settlement is a little bit overwhelming. I likened it earlier to someone telling you that the ocean is big. But when you get to the ocean itself, that's when it really starts to set in of, this is, oh, so you mean big. Okay. But I try to remind myself, and hopefully the same advice will serve you well, is that everybody who's ever been good at anything had a first day. Right? Had a first week, had the first challenge, had their first setback, had their first set of frustrations. But what made them ultimately be great is the fact that they kept going back. They were able to get it figured out that our first failure or first failures don't define our terms as either settlement director or as auditor, and that as long as we continue to sort of learn from our mistakes, grow through these challenges, ultimately we will be fine. Now, if I keep saying that, one day it'll sink in. I think I'll actually believe it. But until then, we'll keep working to make this as solid a process as possible. Okay. Ryan and Joe are. So Ryan and Joe were introduced earlier and have already headed back to the office. As much as I would love them to stay here, as much as I would have loved them to come up and give a presentation, we have kept their heads down and focused on getting through the settlement. They are still working with your staff back in the counties to make sure that the settlements are still being reviewed, that questions are still going both directions. Is Posey County present? No. Okay. Well, if they hadn't got the email, they've already pre-approved, or Posey was pre-approved earlier this morning. I wanted to give that good news in person. So as those two gentlemen make their way back to the office, they'll continue to work with your staff just to make sure that as the submissions are coming in, we're able to get those processed and sent back either with pre-approval or with additional questions for follow-up. On Friday, we reached the 25% mark for the settlements, which still means we've got a long way to go, but we are learning as we go through these. On Monday, we had our personal best day, managing to send out 9 pre-approval notices, which we were quite proud of, until we realized we had 14 submissions that day also. So even on our best day so far, we still managed to lose ground. We're going through those as quickly as we can, and we thank you for the patience that your office is showing, and for their expertise, being able to provide us answers for questions that sometimes aren't really questions, right? Just needed a better understanding of what we were looking at. Is sometimes the only hurdle for pre-approval. So we thank them for that one. We thank them for that one. We thank them for that one. Ryan and Joe are enthusiastic, to say the least. Ryan, if he was here, I'm sure would blush at the thought. But some of the things that he is pushing us to do programmatically is allowing us to free up additional time for the actual review portion, which is a very sort of exciting improvement on our end to the process of it helps us sort of keep up. I mean, without some of the things that he's doing, with Excel, we would be we'd be further behind than we are now. Joe, although is only been with the settlement department for 5 weeks, is showing tremendous promise. Although he is new to the settlement department, he is not new to the state. Previously worked at the House of Representatives for 4 years before joining our staff 5 weeks ago. I have heard the expression "out of the frying pan and into the fire," but what a time to start! What a time to start in the department, where within one sentence we are showing him what needs to be done, asking him to fully understand the entire settlement process, even though he hadn't participated in the abstract or the June settlement. So he is doing his best, and he is still sort of keeping his chin up, of trying to get as good as the staff used to be. Okay. Okay. A little bit of background about the auditor's office in general. We are made up of several departments. We have an accounts payable department that is responsible for processing all the payments from the state. So if DNR, if you're working with NDOT to sort of repave a road or to do work in one of the parks in your counties, the check will come or the ACH will actually come from our office. Our payroll department is responsible for paying all state employees, including judges. Our accounting department is responsible for keeping the books for the state, along with generating the CAFR. But I like to think that the gem of the auditor's office is the settlement department, or used to be the settlement department. We have 3 major responsibilities, or 3 sort of focus areas that we work closely with the counties on. We have other responsibilities and duties, and like Auditor Crouch said, we want to make sure that we are a resource for you. Some cases that means being able to answer a question, and in other cases that just means being able to direct traffic. So instead of having you memorize the primary points of contact for 200 state agency accounts payable groups, maybe that's a question that we can answer, or we can put you in contact with that direct person. But the 3 main areas are distributions, remittances, and then the 3-part abstract and settlement process. Now, from a distribution standpoint, that is money that is coming from the state to the counties. I don't have that figure, but by the end of the year, it should be upwards of probably $1 billion has flown through our office to the different counties and states. I mean, these are distributions like the motor vehicle highway, the local road and street, the Cadget Co. at Seated, the the Kejiko Cedits, the cigarette tax are all processed by our department and distributed to your counties. Now, the remittances are the money that flows from the county toward the state. And since July 1st, the counties have remitted upwards of $64 million, and it's been our department that has processed those checks, has deposited them in, has asked for additional feedback, but $64 million in 6 months is not bad. And then that finally leaves the settlement process, the abstract, the spring/June settlement, and then finally the December/fall settlement process. Our office, or the settlement department, also maintains a website similar to DLGF and State Board of Accounts. We'll make sure that you are emailed all that information. On that site, we are going to continue to direct as much traffic as possible. We post presentations there. We post your CVIT reports, your FIT reports, your annual reports. In addition to sending out email blasts that contain all the information, if we can just put it on the website and direct you there, it just cuts down on the amount of email traffic that we have going back and forth. Okay, all right, so that's all the boring stuff. The exciting part was I was also asked to talk about what we see for the future, right? What we would like to see, once we get a better understanding of how the entire department works, and as time allows, there are a couple projects that I'm really excited about, at least debuting here, or at least talking, just sort of sowing the seed of some of the things that we would like to do in the next 12 months. And the first one is travel. I would love to see Switzerland and Ohio and Peru and Mexico. And before you think that we have $1 billion budget for our travel, these are all counties or cities in Indiana. But we would like to engage you sort of on your home turf. We know that we see you twice a year, right? We're going to see you at the spring conference. We're going to see you at the fall conference. But during those times, we are sort of sharing we are sharing your attention with all the other information that's coming out. If it makes sense, especially for newly elected officials, especially for those who hadn't previously had a role in government. I mean, why not have us come out for the day? If time allows, if it makes sense to, why not have us come out and meet your staff, get a better idea of what you see from your end. I mean, we have an idea of the way the county works the same way I'm sure that you have an idea of the way the state works, but as time allows, we would love to schedule a visit to be able to come out there and actually meet you face to face. See more of this great state than just my small cubicle. All right, the other thing I'd like to talk about is one of the things we'd really like to do is increase the use of technology throughout the entire process. Now, some of that just means software programs, just getting a better idea of how to use Excel, how to use Outlook, communicating back and forth. Some of it is getting clear instructions, sort of working with the BMV to improve that FTP site so that we have a more consistent target, bless you, a more consistent target for distributing and receiving files from you. Long term, though, and this is maybe 2-3 years out, optimistically, would be expanding the use of the gateway system so that we can not only distribute information but also receive information from you in that way. This is definitely something we're going to be talking about over the next couple of years. This is going to be a recurring theme. If you have questions or concerns, please let us know. Like I said, we really do want you to be a partner in this one. If it makes sense to us, but it doesn't make sense to you guys, then it just doesn't make sense. I mean, we would have to find a better way to be able to sort of work out your bugs before we start trying to roll out anything. So your feedback will always be welcome. We will do our best to sort of balance the needs of one county against the needs of the 92. But I was told that you guys were not shy about asking questions. I hope that continues as we go forward. Okay, so we've got one last area I'd like to talk about. I was trying to keep this sort of as high level as possible, but there's one area I'd actually like to campaign for in this room at this time, and that is direct deposit. Many of your counties already receive money from the state electronically, right? So sometimes even before we send out the emails letting you know we're getting ready to send you 100,000, 500,000, you have already seen the money in your bank accounts. What I'd like to campaign for is the sort of the reverse of that situation, that counties begin submitting to our office electronically. There are dozens of advantages for submitting that way. The first one I would try to sell you on is simply the cost associated with it. As we go through the settlement process, we can see the prices being paid for just the postage that are going back and forth between your offices and ours. The certified mail, the registered mail, the overnight mail, $7, $8 for an envelope to get it to us. Now, if we switch to electronic, we're not going to balance the budget by switching to direct deposit. But it would still be a significant savings to the state if we can just get that money electronically. But the second advantage, and probably the most pronounced, is the speed at which we can just have those funds delivered to us. We are checking our bank account every morning, and the time it saves from having to put it in the mail, and it's taking its 7 to 10 business days to make it to our office versus just showing up the following day. I would ask that as you begin in January to have those conversations again of, does this make sense for us to be able to remit electronically? So earlier I said that the counties has sent $64 million to the state. That $64 million was made up of 934 total deposits. 87% of those came in the form of a check. Only 13% came electronically. So right now, best case scenario, we'd switch those two numbers for next year, right? So that we are able to just take advantage of direct deposit where it makes sense to. Okay. Last thing about the direct deposit. Transferring the money is only half of it. We would still need the same documentation, the same forms, but those can be emailed and just sent right to us instead of printed and mailed to us. So we would still have the same documentation. We'd still have the same communication. The only difference would be it would come electronically versus coming through the mail. So I would encourage you to just take a look at that process, find out what your county's doing, and if there is, if your banks allow it, if this makes sense for you guys, we'd love to get you signed up. There's a form that our office is able to provide. It's just a matter of taking that to the bank, and then once it's set up, just instead of cutting the check, you are transferring the money. Okay, I feel like that was about 75 minutes. How'd I? I'll do. Okay. Are there any questions? Yeah.
What are some of the types of money that counties send to your office?
Okay.
I understand what you send to us. But what do you send to you?
Okay. We receive right, there are costs associated with both the June and the December settlement. If you can picture the 105 form in the bottom left-hand corner in section C, we have got the fines and fees that get remitted twice a year. We have the fines and forfeitures money that.
We can't hear the question.
Sorry. The question was, what type of money is the county sending to the state? Okay. So we've got semi-annually we're getting money that relates to the settlement. Semi-annually we're getting fines and forfeitures. We've got a form that we're sending out there. Judges' supplemental costs. If your county is electing to supplement the judges, there's a quarterly schedule where they send money to the state. In January, I promised to send you a more comprehensive list of just some of the more common distributions, but those are just 3 off the top of my head. Mm-hmm. Anything else? Yes.
Well, thanks for being here. My question is, in the past, monies didn't get necessarily sent to the counties, or there was a large amount sitting out there someplace. And so I don't know if you're the right person to ask the question to, but what is being done, what has changed so that system is more accurate, funds are dispersed more efficiently, so on and so forth? That's my question.
Okay. With the exception of one report, with the auditor's office being sort of the focal point of the distribution, we're hoping that we've seen an improvement even in the last 24 months, in the last 12 months, and the last 6 months about being able to process things more routinely. Dan has created an unbelievable spreadsheet that lets us know when distributions need to be done. when distribution needs to be done. For example, on December 1st, I processed 24 different distributions: the CVET, the FIT, all the Lowits, who else went out? We processed 24 distributions. I mean, we have a schedule that both Suzanne and the deputy auditor are monitoring to make sure that we are sticking to those schedules. The one exception to that rule is the excise tax cut, which we are still working on BMV to try to sort of standardize the process on their end, which would then allow the information to get to us, in which we can take care of that distribution. It doesn't take us very long to process it, but we're still playing that waiting game to make sure that the money's available before we can send it out. Now, the BMV has their own struggles, and they are aware of the problem. They're working to, Tamitha Cooper, who is just absolute dynamite, is working to try to improve the process on her end. Once we can get that solved, the distribution should come out like clockwork, almost at the beginning of the year, with the exception of the occasional odd one. We should be able to tell you when to expect the money, or which distributions you'll be getting, and what time frame to expect those in. It's since it makes up such an important part of what the settlement department does, we should be able to provide you that schedule. It is pretty high up on the priority list to make sure that we know that you guys are waiting for those funds, and that oftentimes they don't stop with you, and so there are locals who are asking you for the money, and then you are turning around and asking us. So we're trying to be as respectful and as efficient in getting you those money so that you can answer those questions. What county are you from?
Boone County.
Boone. Yes.
Seems so archaic that we have to have some type of a receiving system separate from our Indian tax system that we use. Is there anything in the works to make that, bring that into, maybe it's just our system, I don't know, we use Indian tax.
Okay. So.
We have to receive all of that in prior to settlement. It's all the cash flow. It's can't receive it, and we're balanced daily with the auditor. But it just seems to me, from, a fairly fresh perspective in that office, that this is archaic to hand receive these particular monies that come to the county. If there was a way to display this data, or if there was a place in our software system that we could see it in, just like when we taxes on a daily basis, money comes, of course, in the form of an ACH. It would make more sense to display this. But hand write receipts, we've set ours up where it's at least in an Excel format, and we print out the duplicated receipts. But it's
Okay.
outside of all of the systems.
Okay. That one's a little bit outside my depth. I'm going to have to do a little bit of research. I'll be able to get back to you with an answer on that one. What county are you from? Warwick.
Is there anyone else in the room that does it any other way?
Okay. One last question. Yes, please.
You started out with wanting to tell Posey County that they were, settlement was
Pre-approved.
alerting the what does that mean in my world of the new auditor? Should my auditor's office already have been looking for approval? Do I need to, when I come in, do I need to look to see if they have this?
Which county are you from? Marshall. The pre-approval is a designation that our office gives that lets us know that you've submitted all the forms you've needed to. We've had a chance to verify your distributions, your rates, and at this point, you're able to submit money to the state and your other taxing units. So it also is the trigger for us to print off your 105 and send it down, or send 2 copies to your office, one to be signed and returned back to our office. So it is the sort of the first big sort of checkpoint in the process. It's the auditor's office saying that we've confirmed the information that you've submitted. It all balances the relationships we've done. The spreadsheets are intact, and they're ready to move on to the second step. Now,
So as a new auditor coming in, I need to look to see if I'm there.
yeah, during the settlement process, there first you make the submission, and we have
Should be done before she steps in office, because she steps in office June.
well, it's based on when we receive the submissions, right? So generally, the way the process is working is as they are ready, they are submitted to our office. They go into the queue. As we finish one, we take the next one that has been submitted. If it passes, we are sending out an email that's congratulations, you've been pre-approved, which is the trigger to move on to the next steps. And as there are issues, we end up sending those back to the counties to sort of resolve those issues and then moving on to the next one in the list.
Is there a deadline for those submissions?
Sooner is better than later, but
What calendar are we talking?
best case scenario, I'm trying to remember if maybe 1 or 2 made it into January last year, but we should be able to get them. One of the big hurdles for beginning the process is that final excise tax cut distribution that we made. And so on December 1st, we processed that distribution. At that point, you could have officially have begun the settlement process. So we would expect that within 30 days seems like plenty of time to make your submission to our office. It gives us plenty of time to sort of work out or to communicate back and forth to get you to that pre-approval standpoint, which is not the end of the process on your end by any stretch of the imagination, but is the green light to know that the auditor's office has reviewed your info and believe that it's accurate.
Fred, don't you have on your website kind of a general guideline about how the process works, and it kind of gives the general deadlines and that type of thing? Maybe you want to talk about that and where they can access that information?
Yes. On the auditor's website, which we will send out, which we'll be sending out. On the auditor's website, which will be included in the communications that we start sending out in January, there are links to a settlement manual, or 2 settlement manuals, one for the June settlement and then one for the December. The June one is similar to the December, but as you can imagine, with December, there seem like there's a 1,000 other things that we have to check. Inside those documents are timelines, our expectations, the sort of back and forth, an explanation of all the sheets that are going to be submitted. And although every county doesn't use every sheet, there are some familiar ones that are shared by everyone. The 49 TCs, for example, the 17 TCs will be examples of sheets that we're going to be expecting from everyone. So on the auditor's website, there's a ton of information relating to the settlement process. We are working to sort of rewrite that into our own handwriting, just to the manual itself doesn't need improvements. Just if we can find things to it, additions that we can add to it that work to benefit us as much as it would to benefit the new staff as much as it would benefit the county. So it's more clear what document needs to be submitted, what it looks like, how it needs to be submitted, along with an explanation of what's on that and the timeline for completion. Yep. Oh yeah. I'm gonna be moving into your inbox in January. But it's as good a time as any to mention just how important the state auditor's website is. I mean, like I said, we're posting all that information out there for you. The email traffic that we send, the documents that we're emailing out are done in addition to posting that information out there. So you have it before you need it. It's just that email works as just a reminder that here's where you can go to find it.
Is there a specific person that they should provide their email address to when they get in the office?
In January, it is our, once we make it through this settlement process, it is our plan to start contacting your office. Right now, we're maintaining a contact list where we have your primary point of contacts for abstracts and settlements and judges supplemental, auditors and deputy auditors. What we'd like to do is make sure that we have an up-to-date list. So in January, we will be sending you to your office a listing of all the names and numbers and sort of job descriptions from the Mile High standpoint to figure out which ones need to be updated. Employees that no longer work there, employees that have switched sections, so they're no longer in charge of sort of settlements, but now they've moved to judges supplemental, or now they're deputies, or now they're no longer deputies, but they are auditors, just to make sure that we have an updated contact list. So in January, we'll come looking for you, or we will be polling your offices to make sure that we have information necessary so that we're not sending email to someone who doesn't want it, and making sure that we're including everybody who should be included on those larger emails. Which actually reminds me, one of the other functions, I'm glad you said that, one of the other functions of the auditor's office is we maintain the email addresses that are tied to those ACH notification emails. So when we make a payment electronically, there's an email that gets triggered. As you are newly elected, there's likely already a point of contact in your office, but if you want to receive those emails or you want to change who those emails are going to, that can be done through our office. So if you'll, as you think of it, or as you think of it, especially after you've taken office, if you want to see who's receiving emails when payments are being made, well, we can send you that list, and if that needs to be updated, that's definitely something else we can do. Yes.
In the past, our county distributed CVIT and FIT as part of the rest of the funding through settlement, like property tax and excise. But this year, they distributed CVIT and FIT early, or they already sent it to the taxing unit. Is there any recommendation that you have for county auditors? Should they send out all of that money at the same time? Or once they get it from the state, send it out to the cities, towns, and the other taxpayers?
That is a fantastic question. Let me do a little bit of research on that one. We know that the CVIT distributions are coming out on June 1st and then December 1st. And so let me find out if it's better to separate those two, or if they can just go out as
Okay,
put together.
talking with some of our local taxing units, they said, we like getting it as soon as we get it. So I didn't know if there was like procedure that it's better to do it all in one lump.
Let me check on that one. Anything else? You guys are letting me off easy. Okay. All right. Thank you for your time. Hope you enjoy the rest of your conference.